All right, today we're going to learn about cyberspace. We have two daily objectives. Number one, explain how states can use technology and the internet as weapons. And number two, explain how private citizens use the internet to challenge states' power. So with the creation of the internet, the power of the individual greatly increased. The problem is that power can be good or it can be bad. It's all about how you use power. One of the ways that people use the internet and use their newfound power is through online blackmail. So the internet is actually a very insecure place. There's lots of viruses running around. Something as simple as opening the attachment on an email or downloading a virus or a file can lead to viruses and then potentially abuse. One of the worst abuses is online blackmail. This is often used to get money or other services from people. So basically you download a virus and then maybe they record and that virus puts a recorder on your computer, like a keylogger that logs everything you type. And now they have all of your banking information and all your logins. Maybe it records everything that your webcam is viewing. And then they use that to blackmail you. Online blackmail can be very, very scary. Cyberbullying is another kind of form of this crime. And again, it can kind of look like online blackmail, or it can just be bullying via text message or instant message or something like that. I'll talk about Anonymous for a minute. So Anonymous is a group of non-state hackers. So these are just ordinary individual people. And they are hacking, they are using viruses for what they deem good. A lot of times they're called hacktivists. Here's some examples of some of their big hacks. So in 2011, they launched this thing called Dark Discovery against child pornography, where they hacked a lot of child pornography websites and then actually brought them down. 2011, it was called Cybergate, and it was against a company called HB Gary that Anonymous did not like. In 2012, they attacked a lot of federal websites. I want to think that they took down the Department of State's website. And this was over Mega Upload. So Mega Upload was a website where you could go and download pretty much anything you wanted, music, movies, whatever. But of course, all of that was illegal. Anonymous thought that all of this stuff should be free, and they didn't think it should be illegal. The federal government, the U.S. government, took Mega Upload down and arrested the founder, Kim.com. And so Anonymous struck back and attacked some federal websites. In 2015, they attacked Donald Trump's website. Also in 2015, they hacked the World Trade Organization's website. If that name sounds familiar, it's because we talked about it as part of the Bretton Woods system. And also in 2015, they attacked ISIS' main website. They're very decentralized. So a lot of people say they're anonymous, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily all working together. So it can kind of get confusing if this is truly an anonymous attack or really not an anonymous attack, or who can even say what a true anonymous attack is. But there are lots of hackers out there doing things very political, and they generally think they're good, but it might not always be good. It just kind of depends on the circumstances. WikiLeaks is another example of just ordinary people, non-states, so not governments, using the internet for what they consider to be good. So WikiLeaks is actually a website where the public can read classified materials. It is illegal for you to read classified documents if you do not have a security clearance. So do not go to WikiLeaks and read stuff. It is illegal. Big question is, where does WikiLeaks get the classified information? Really from three places. Whistleblowers. A whistleblower is a person who blows the whistle. So maybe they work in the government and they see something they don't like, so they take the information and they leak it. They let it go. They give it to other people like WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks it publishes on the internet. Hackers like Anonymous or Russian hackers. And then government officials, again, that kind of goes back to whistleblowers. So WikiLeaks does have a good and bad reputation. This guy over here, Julian Assange, he's wanted in the U.S. and he's hiding out right now in the U.K. So WikiLeaks is another example of how individual people use the internet for political means. One more example, and that is the use of social media via the Arab Spring. So we talked about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. The U.S. invasion and occupation of Iraq totally destabilized the Middle East. Terrorist groups were popping up everywhere. It was really a free-for-all. Islamic fundamentalists grew angry that Christians, represented by the USA, occupied what they considered Muslim Holy Land. And then Islamic fundamentalist movements gained tremendous power across the Middle East and began overthrowing dictators. The Islamic movements gathered and organized using social media. Social media moved too fast for dictators to control. Really, we're talking about through Twitter. So a lot of people in the Middle East use Twitter to organize against repressive governments. And when this first started, it looked really good. It looked like, oh, wow, like we're going to get democracy in the Middle East for the first time ever. The dictators that these guys were rebelling against tried to shut down Twitter and other social media sites, but it was too late. WhatsApp was another big one they tried to shut down. But by the time it came, it was too late. The damage had been done. People had already gathered. People already knew what was going on. They had other means of communicating. Ultimately, the Arab Spring was a failure. We can see the Syrian civil war was one of the outcomes of the Arab Spring. People started rebelling peacefully, started protesting peacefully, and the Assad government cracked down. The Arab Spring is a failure. Most of the countries that got overthrown, their dictators got overthrown, got replaced by other dictators. Egypt is a great example of this. But it was an attempt by ordinary people to use the internet via social media to make political change. Another example is the 2016 coup in Turkey. So Turkey is a Middle East country, right between Europe and the Middle East. The opposite actually happened in Turkey. So the Turkish military was afraid of a growing Islamic movement. They're afraid of Islamic fundamentalism coming to Turkey. So the Turkish military attempts a coup. So they try to take over the government. They quickly occupy the major cities. Protests and rioting break out as regular people check social media, learn about the coup, and took to the streets. They like their Islamic government. The president of Turkey, who was in hiding, actually used Facebook Live. He got on Facebook Live and said, "Turkish people, like this is a coup. The military's trying to take over. In the coup, go to the streets, protest, rebel, fight the soldiers." That's what they did. And the Turkish military coup failed. You can see the civilians over here climbing on a Turkish military tank. So, I mean, sometimes, governments can use social media just like ordinary people can use social media. Now we're going to talk about state-organized hackers specifically. So how are governments really going out of their way to use the internet? First, real obvious example was Russian hackers. 2016, Russian hackers under the control of the Russian government hacked the Democratic Party servers here in the United States and stole lots and lots and lots of emails that Hillary Clinton had sent, that John Podesta had sent, which worked for Hillary. It's very controversial to decide whether this had an impact on the presidential election or not. It definitely did not make the Democrats look good that the Russians had stolen their emails, at the very least. But you can see how basically a dictator, Vladimir Putin, and the Russians are using the internet to attack our democracy and our voting. That's very scary. At the very least, to try to influence public opinion on how they vote. Chinese hackers have been around a long time, and they like to steal blueprints. They like to steal ideas from U.S. companies, and they've been doing this for a very, very long time. That's something to be concerned about as well. Finally, we got Stuxnet. So down here, these are Iranians. They are in an Iranian nuclear site where they're trying to create nuclear weapons. The United States does not want Iran to have nuclear weapons. We don't really want anybody to have nuclear weapons other than us. But the Iranians have been trying to get nuclear weapons for some time. We had to find a way to get rid of their nuclear weapons, but we didn't want to use military force because, like in Iraq and Afghanistan, when we did that there, it was a mess. So, and again, nobody knows for sure, but everybody kind of knows. The USA and Israel, so a country in the Middle East, a Jewish country, we teamed up and we created a computer virus called Stuxnet. And Stuxnet specifically targeted the Iran nuclear weapon program. Basically what it did was it attacked their computers and these motors, and it made the motors move. I can't remember if it was a faster or slower speed than they were supposed to, which ultimately prevented the Iranians from being able to create the uranium they needed to create the nuclear weapons. So we totally destroyed their nuclear program with a computer virus by influencing the machines. Real smart. If we get a chance, we'll watch this video, but we may not. Take a few minutes, answer your 2 daily objectives.